The State House of Representatives at gridlock right now because, well, half of the delegation isn't there. Republicans are in Austin. Meanwhile, most of the Texas Democratic members of the House are in Washington, D.C. State Representative Steve Allison from District 121, it covers a large part of Northeast San Antonio, joins us. Representative Allison, you're a Republican, but you think that there are room that you can make agreements, that things can be worked out between your party and the Democrats who are now in D.C., correct?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. And we've made such great strides. I think the election bill, talking about that, has been moving in the right direction for all of us. And I just hate to see it come to a stop this way. I think if there's areas that are still of concern, just sitting down and discussing and having a dialogue about if there's certain languages needs to be tweaked, if we need to have a discussion about the respective positions to better understand, we need to do that and reach something on a bipartisan manner that we've come so far. And that's one thing I've always prided the Texas Legislature about, and I've certainly approached that way. We have to do things in a bipartisan way to accomplish things, and we shouldn't hit a roadblock like this.
How big an issue is trust in all this? That Democratic leaders don't really trust Republican leaders, and Republican leaders don't necessarily trust Democratic leaders?
Well, unfortunately, I think that's become a big issue. I think there is a trust factor right now, which is another reason why we need to cool down and bring people together and restore that, because trust is so essential in this process.
Yesterday, you mentioned the possibility of having a bipartisan working group to look at these issues. Behind the scenes, what is that really looking like? Is someone from both sides really looking to get both sides together, or is it just people talking on both ends?
A little bit of both, but I think that's so important, because of the quorum problem. We've been shut down completely. We can't have committee meetings, can't do anything on the floor. No House business can be conducted. But a working group, I think, would fit within that and still be possible to then report back. And I think it makes a lot of sense to just try to keep this moving and see where there are differences still, where they've been addressed, and move this forward. And that's what I think the voters of Texas want. I think that's what we need. And again, to get past this issue so we can get to some of the other very important and pressing matters that are on the agenda that we can't reach because of this gridlock or quorum problem, however we want to characterize it. Property taxes are a huge issue in my district and throughout the state. That's on the agenda. We can't address it because of this problem. Teachers. We had a group of retired teachers in today. There are over 400,000 retired teachers who haven't had a raise on their pensions, haven't had a cost of living raise. We gave them a 13th check 2 years ago and have another one on the table now that we can't do because of this gridlock. Foster care system is in bad situation, needs more funding. That's another priority that we can't reach, and it's a critical need in San Antonio that we need to address.
Why do you think there even seems to be a disagreement about whether a voting law is needed at this point? Why do you think it is important that some sort of voting regulations get passed this session?
Well, I think we saw that last session 2 years ago. We had a good deal of attention on voting, improving the system, making it easier and more accessible to vote, but at the same time, making it difficult to violate the election laws. And I think that reform process has been in motion ever since then, that I think is increasingly important to have in place. We want to get the voting percentages up. They were up this last election, but we're still low in Texas. And I think if we can refine the system like this bill is intended to do, make voting easier and more accessible, we come a long way to do that. And I think the time is right that we need to do that.
There's even disagreements about whether it makes it easier, though. I mean, what you would define as making things easier, some might say, well, there's not widespread election fraud. It's not been proven. Why are we doing this? And there's some who are even bringing up the issue of poll watchers, where a poll watcher can be a partisan poll watcher can be allowed, but then, a poll watcher have a complaint about, but you can't actually dismiss them until they have 2 strikes. I mean, when you go into some of this bill, there's some things in there that seem odd to me.
Well, but I think that's a good example, Steve, is the poll watcher situation. It's come under considerable criticism because of the different versions that have been proposed. I think it is in a very good spot right now, that we don't want any intimidation. There were earlier proposals where poll watchers could record by audio or video means. That's out now. I think, again, that's another example of moving in the right direction. On the voter fraud, I think we need to move beyond that paranoia, or however we want to characterize it, and maybe look around the country. The other states that are having such problems, having audits and requests for audits. And we are in a position where we can take some proactive, preventative type measures to make sure we don't get in that situation in the future. And the time is perfect to do that. And I think that's the goal and the focus of those provisions. But as far as making it easier, we're seeing now that greatly increased hours that are important to make it more accessible. That is very important. We still have provisions for voting by mail. Still have provisions for drive-in for particularly elderly and disabled that is important. So I think we have this moving in a very good direction that is going to be helpful to everyone.
One of the things that Texans really want to know is, what are you doing about the power grid? We were without power in February. We lost lives. And this situation is really what matters moving forward to Texans.
And I agree with you, and what goes missed, and we see it in this current dispute of the election bill. There's such partisan rhetoric and agendas that we see them play, and they miss the facts. And the grid situation is probably a primary one. We made very significant initial steps in addressing the grid situation during the recently concluded regular session on weatherization mandates, emergency alert system, local prioritization, addressed a complete overhaul of ERCOT and PUC, addressed reliability and generation needs going forward. And it's another prime example of what this quorum problem has caused. Today, in the House, the State Affairs Committee was to meet over the grid and have an update and further discussions with PUC and ERCOT. That couldn't take place because of this quorum situation. And that's another reason and another point why this thing is so unnecessary and so unfortunate, because it's the other things that we're missing that are so important to Texans, so important to our community, that we're not able to address because of the walkout.
You know what I appreciate, Representative, is the fact that you and I can come on here, and Patty, and we can have a discussion and we can talk about some of the issues that are out there, and nobody gets their feelings heard, and nobody. That seems to be what's missing in this whole thing. We can just talk and learn about each other in the position. So I really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate that comment. That's what it should be all about, and that's what makes our system work. And we've slipped away from it.
Absolutely. Representative Steve Allison, always appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Appreciate y'all.
We'll be right back.